Dan Dickau here for Gonzaga Nation. Well, the transfer portal has come and gone, at least to, don't want to necessarily call them defections, but guys that have decided that they want to test the waters and see what opportunities may be best for themselves. It's the name of the game in college sports these days, and in particular college basketball. Nearly 2,000 players have entered the transfer portal. Unfortunately, a number of those guys will not find a home. If you look statistically at what has happened the last 2 years when the transfer numbers have spiked, not every player who thinks they're leaving for greener pastures finds a place that fits them better and is better than the place that they were just leaving. Now, you can't fault someone for maybe wanting a bigger part of a playing opportunity. So some guys transfer down. Sometimes guys, while they're in that transfer portal, just realize that there isn't as much of need or want for their particular skill set or their particular position, regardless of level. But when you look at the three players that left Gonzaga's program to enter the transfer portal, I think all three are going to find a home. And I would imagine that all three find a home that fit them well. The first one being Colby Brooks, walk on, redshirted a year, graduated early. My understanding, he's got 2 years to play. I wouldn't be surprised to see him, trying to find a Big Sky school or trying to find a Big West school by taking a step down, at least in competition, or maybe even going the Division II route. Seeing him in practice, there's a lot to like. At those levels, when you talk at the Gonzaga level, I think he was at Gonzaga first to be a student, and secondly, to be part of a terrific basketball program as a walk-on, and kind of learn that experience and have that experience. But I think there's a place for Colby in college basketball. He's an athlete. He plays hard. His jump shot obviously is not one of the seven wonders of the world when you watch it. But teams, coaches, staffs will overlook that, and they will see the toughness that he brings, the activity on the glass, his defensive abilities. And I do think he's going to find a home, and we wish him nothing but the best of luck in finding that home and finding and carving out a niche at the next stop for him. The two other players, both international players, both from Europe. Start with Paav Stosich. He was a late addition to the roster out of Serbia last year anyways. Last player to be added to Gonzaga's roster a season ago. Was never able to really entrench himself in the rotation. Made 14 appearances, only averaged a point a game. So really didn't get many extended opportunities to really show what he can do. But if you look back on the film from his FIBA playing opportunities with his native country of Serbia and their national team at that level, you see a player that definitely is a Division I player. Will have opportunities, I think, for sure. Mentioned Colby Brooks. Does he want to transfer down to a Division II or Big Sky, Big West? I think Stosich is definitely somebody that, as I've covered college basketball at multiple levels for many years now, he could definitely play in the Big Sky. He can be a rotational player in the Big Sky in the very near future. Whether that's this year and whether that's a team competing for a league title, that's the question. But I definitely think he will find himself a home at the Division I level if he wants it. The other thing that maybe we don't know is there a professional opportunity to go back to his native Serbia and begin a professional career? Because he's got good size, he's got good skills. What I've seen, he's also got a solid feel for the game. So Paav Stosich, obviously, moving on. And the one that I think is, to me, is a little disappointing, because I thought he had a really bright future for Gonzaga. That's Lucakovich from Croatia. I think the adjustment of the speed of the game and the physicality for the perimeter was an issue early on. But I saw signs that really made me think that he was going to be a rotational player a season ago. once he kind of got up to speed. And you, like I said, you were seeing signs of that. You were seeing positive movement in that direction. And then unfortunately, he breaks his hand, misses 8 or 9 games right in the middle of the season. And those games were so valuable and important to him, for his confidence, for his development, and also to really carve out a role in the rotation, so that when he did come back, he was obviously playing catch up, and he was fighting uphill to try to find a way to get in the rotation. He played in 16 games this year, averaged about 3 points a game. I really think that if he stays in the States, and he decides to transfer to another Division I program, I really think he's going to have a good career. I think he's a big guard, who can handle it well enough at the point guard if he chooses the offensive system and attack or the level that allows him to have success. But he's a big guard that can handle a little bit. I think he's got a really good feel for the game. He's got a flair to want to make the pass to teammates. Again, he sees it, but he adds some flair to it at times. I think the one question mark on his game that he'll need to improve on, and I'm sure it will be addressed, is consistency shooting the ball from the perimeter. I think a big guard, he was really good at finding cutting opportunities. He was opportunistic on the offensive glass at times to get him some chances, but he's moving on. Wish him nothing but the best of luck. Not sure if he will have interest in heading back to his native country of Croatia, but regardless, wish Lucakovich the best of luck. I really wish he would have stayed at Gonzaga. I thought there was a role right in front of him. Now, don't know, what the NIL numbers look like, in regards to what was paid in year 1, what is promised in year 2, what was asked for in year 2, because there's so many stories that are out there, not just for the American players, but also for the European players that we don't think about quite so much. And I think, the European players, many times they've got agents and or club teams in Europe that have a little bit more influence on the situation, especially nowadays. So those are the guys that are heading out, excuse me. But more importantly, who's coming back? Holy cow. Gonzaga is poised for a big season. There's a reason, in a lot of these too early top 25s, they were getting top 15, top 10. I think there even may be some top 5 predictions early on, heading into the deeper into the offseason with summer and then fall coming up. And that's without having them really sifted through the portal just yet. Yes, they did have a good pickup in Michael Aayi, the native from the west side of the state of Washington, who played last year at Pepperdine, where he was a tremendous player. He's in the NBA early entry list. So he has committed to Gonzaga. He has signed financial agreement papers that tie him to Gonzaga as long as he withdraws his name from the NBA draft. So we don't know what's going to happen there. But let's get back to the guys that are returning from Gonzaga. Tremendous job from Coach Few and staff of keeping this group together. I can only imagine there was a lot of outsiders trying to create some dissent and get guys to put their name in the portal, to test the waters, see what maybe would be out there in regards to a different school and a role, different school and an NIL opportunity. With the way that Graham Ike played last year, with the way Ryan Nembhard played in particular that second half of the season, I'm sure had either one of those guys decided, they would have had a valuable name in the portal. Nolan Hickman would have had a valuable name in the portal. There would have been a ton of interest. Same goes for Ben Gregg. Seeing how the season continued to progress, and if all guys stayed together, what could become next year can be pretty impressive. And I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with those 4 guys deciding to return. So those are your 4 starters that are returning: Nembhard, Hickman, Ike, and Ben Gregg. Obviously, you got to replace somebody with Anton Watson leaving. But the other thing is, you got your top 2 players off the bench, young guys, not wanting to test the portal, understanding the process, understanding the development that has to occur, the experience that you need to gain at the college level, and wanting to continue that process, that experience in their career at Gonzaga. And that's Braden Huff and Dusty Stromer. Both had really good stretches. Dusty started early in the season before Ben Gregg kind of took that starting spot, but showed a lot of maturity, showed a lot of poise down the stretch and understanding where his opportunities were going to come and then making the most of it. He played really well in that NCAA tournament, first round win against McNeese State. And then Braden Huff, flashes early of scoring the basketball, soft touch, pick and pop threes, had some rough stretches as far as guarding the ball and rebounding at times, but he was tremendous, I thought, second half of the season. I think one game that really comes to mind would be that game at Kentucky. He made some big plays down the stretch, screen and roll, scored in roll actions. So, to get your top 6 back, I think is unbelievable testament to what they experienced last year and what they see can happen in this upcoming season. Glad to see June back as well. He had a couple opportunities early in the year to carve out a role and a niche. He wasn't quite able to take advantage of it. But the fact that he's decided to come back, I think is a real positive addition. The hope is that he can, at least from our perspective, is that he can grow upon the time and the experience in the limited minutes that he got last year. Grow as far as watching film, understanding what his expectations will be next year, and be prepared to take that advantage and run with it. I stay in touch with one of his mentors a fair amount, and we were texting throughout the transfer portal timeframe, asking if he's coming back, and he felt that he was going to, and I felt that it would be the correct move for him based on what I've seen, how players' careers have evolved at Gonzaga. He agreed, and it's great to see that June's back in the mix at Gonzaga next season. Quickly touched on Michael Aayi transferring in from Pepperdine. Unbelievable talent. He's looked at as probably a replacement to Anton Watson, a 4 who can step out and shoot it a little bit, pick and pop 4 at times. Shot a really good percentage from 3. I want to say it was right around 46 to 48%. Not a ton of attempts. So sample size is small, but what that shows me is if you're playing that many minutes and you're scoring that much and a lot of offenses run through you, and you've got a lot of freedom in the offense like he had at Pepperdine, but you're not jacking threes, you're taking selective threes, you're taking the right ones, you're knocking them down, you've got a good feel and understanding of how you can impact the game. And I think that really bodes well for Gonzaga. Also averaged around 9 rebounds a game or so. So that's going to, really be another integral part to allowing Gonzaga to fill the hole that was replaced with Anton Watson leaving. Now, the one other interesting bit of news that is currently going on right now is Gonzaga's been hosting a really high-level transfer. He's a grad transfer, somebody that's already spent 5 years in college, and that's Khalif Battle. Spent a year at Butler, spent 3 years at Temple in the A-10, spent a year at Arkansas under Coach Eric Musselman. He's got 1 year left to play. One of those years at Temple, when you just look at it, must have been a medical redshirt because he only played 7 games. The year before that, played 11. So really talented, big 2/3, 3/2, depending on what type of offense you're going to run and what your expectations are or wants from him. But last 7 games last season for Arkansas. Now, granted, there was turmoil at Arkansas. They had a ton of talent. They just didn't put it together and play together well, which I would imagine is one reason Battle would want to come to Spokane and go to Gonzaga, is a chance to make an NCAA tournament run. Temple hasn't been very good. Just quickly in seeing that year he spent at Butler, I don't know off the top of my head if they played in the NCAA tournament that year or not, but you might be finding a guy that is a talented scorer that is placing experience, valuing winning over going to another school for his last year and just getting buckets. I mean, you look at what I saw at Gonzaga and Villanova, the final 2 schools. Well, yes, he's an East Coast guy. He's from New Jersey, so I'm sure it's not far from Villanova. But you're looking at 2 schools that Gonzaga NCAA tournament for 25 years in a row now. Villanova has won national titles, although they've had a couple of years they haven't made it. You're going into a winning culture. And that's something, if you're looking at, the previous 4 years of his college experience, he probably wasn't a part of, and he wants to experience that. So in thinking through it in that lens and looking ahead at his numbers, it could be a tremendous add. Over the course of his 5 years in college, he shot right around 35% from three. Not a huge volume, but enough to say that he's a good shooter, and he's had the freedom to search shot, hunt shots, create shots. It doesn't give you, too much pause for concern to say he's not a good shooter. It maybe gives you actually a little bit of thought process in far as to say within Gonzaga's offense, maybe he goes from being a 35% three-point shooter up to 37, 38 with all the good looks that will be afforded him and playing with a number of good players. He get better looks. So that'll be interesting. Again, he was a big-time scorer down the stretch of last season. Had 42 against Missouri, also had 34 at Kentucky, and he had another game of 36 in that stretch. Had 21 in a win at Duke early in the season for Arkansas. So he's played in big games. He's played in big environments. I think this would be a great addition. It would also make, the competition for minutes at the 2 and 3 really interesting, because one of the other guys that we did not touch on that decided to return is Steele Venters. Obviously, when you talk your top 6 rotational players that are eligible to come back from a season-ago comeback, Steele isn't mentioned in that category because after his injury, he missed the whole entire year. But if you look at the 6 rotational players, you throw in Aayi, you throw in Steele Venters, and if Khalif Battle does commit to Gonzaga and play, you've got a really, really talented 9-player roster that you would expect to see minutes. Now, the Gonzaga's traditionally played 8 players at times. In years past, due to injuries, they've played 7 at times, but there have been a few years they've played 9. Next year, could that be the year that they play 9? Yet to be determined, obviously, because obviously Battle would have to commit. We would have to see how the competition for minutes is looking, but Gonzaga's roster is shaping up nicely, and they will be very selective, I would imagine, in the transfer portal. They will find a player, and they will add a player that is only going to add to what they do, not detract from what they do. And I know that's a cliche statement, and that sounds like an obvious statement. But if you were to look at schools that were active in the portal and they added maybe redundant positions or redundant characteristics with the game, you're creating problems within your roster and how you want to play. There's not a lot of redundancy in this Gonzaga roster in regards to 2 players exactly the same. They might play the same position, but their skill set or how they go about taking care of their business on the floor is a little bit different. And so that's what I think makes this unique. If you were to just really quickly look at that 2/3 position, hey, take Hickman out of the equation because he'll be the starter at the 2, and you got that 2-point guard lineup. But when he would say sub out, you could look at 2s and 3s being Steele Venters, Dusty Stromer, and June, and then as well as Khalif Battle, if he decides to show up. That's a pretty talented 4-person rotation for minutes at the 2 and 3. So it'll be really interesting to see if Battle commits, and if so, how a potential rotation in regards to minutes works. Now, these are all the fun things that you get to look for in the off season. Fans will kind of dissect this throughout, and Gonzaga Nation and our great journalist Cole Forsman will be on top of any and all action that occurs in the transfer portal in regards to if guys decide to commit to Gonzaga. But all in all, wanted to give it a couple days after the transfer portal closed. Only 3 Gonzaga players, Paav Stosich, Luka Krajinovic, and Colby Brooks are heading out. Nobody's heading in just yet other than Michael Aayi, but there are some opportunities to add players. I wouldn't expect a lot of movement, but the movement in years past for Gonzaga of bringing guys in has been really good. You look at Nemhart, Ike from a season ago. You look at other guys that would fit the description of Battle as being an experienced grad transfer. You look at Jordan Matthews, Gino Crandall, Aaron Cook, a couple names that come to mind really quick. The staff is going to sift through, and they're going to make the right decision. They're going to make a great decision of who to add. So for Gonzaga Nation, enjoy the portal madness as it continues on, but enjoy it from a distance, because Gonzaga is not going to be as active as a lot of other schools.